So, we continue with on our effort on understanding the weblog. This is the part 2 of that. In fact, out of this we already know how weblogs are generated and what is the structure of access log file, and the various pre-processing steps we just named. And let us now try to know little bit more about each of the pre-processing steps. Okay. Before we know about discuss about the pre-processing steps, these are some of the issues that we have to resolve during pre-processing activities. First, all the everybody who is accessing my website, their entry may not be available in my access log. Now, what is the problem if it is not available? The model that I will be making about the user may be erroneous. Let us try to understand why exactly it is so. First, the problem of caching. The caching, you know that this whenever you must have experienced at least this thing, even your browser does the caching. Suppose you are not connected to the internet, your internet connectivity is currently not there, and you are requesting for a page, many times the browser will render the page, show the page, and will tell you that whether you would like to see it offline, which means it is no more online. So, if it is not online, if it is not connected to the internet, where from it is getting that web page? That web page was already there in the browser's cache memory. So, not only your browser has this memory, browser has this cache will be there in your, from browser where do you go? You go to your proxy may be having the replica of the page. You are connecting to Google. Do you think that every time you are you know the process of finding resolving this domain name and IP issues? Each IP, you know that IP is associated with a domain name, and once the domain name is given in text form in the browser, this is also in your proxies, in your proxy as well. So, let us say you are connecting to Google. Do you think that every time you are for address resolution you are going to the .com server or the root server? No. You will be first, the page will be this address resolution DNS entry in your nearby system will be first resolved. If it is found in the nearby cache, it will be rendered to you, unless otherwise it is specifically mentioned in the web page. In fact, you need to know more about this HTTP header, HTML header tags, which talks about how to control this cache. So, unless otherwise nothing is mentioned, this web page which is in the nearby cache will be delivered to the user. So, which means the request to a web server may not ultimately go to the web server, it will be rendered from the nearby cache, even from the your browser's cache if it is available. So, therefore, in the access log is erroneous because it is not containing all the user request entries. That is fine, you cannot do anything about it. If you have other mechanisms available, and if you are connecting to know how to collect this thing from the cache of the proxies, which is quite fairly not possible, but still that is can also exploit that. Then dynamic address allocation by ISP. By this we mean we were just looking at when the web page, in fact we can in fact in the earlier lecture what we did, we saw is that when our request is going, it is going through a number of ISPs in between. So, every time the ISPs on the in the root dynamically allocate one IP address, and while the response comes back, it gets resolved, and finally your response comes to your own browser. That is fine. But the point that I am going to make is here is the address that appears in the access log in the place of IP address of a specific request, it is that of the last ISP through which the request has come. So, it is erroneous. Then sessionization is not possible. We were talking about two types of session, client session and server session. So, server sessionization is not possible because of HTTP protocol, stateless nature of HTTP protocol. Then to resolve this, then you have crawler activities. In fact, last class we saw that crawlers are or these software agents or soft bots who will be sent from the search engines and other such, let us say, advertising agencies, etc., to your own company server. So, their entries will also be, because they also make requests. So, their entries will also be also appear in the access log. So, that makes the access log erroneous as well. So, therefore, it requires tedious pre-processing cleaning steps, but somewhat because of this use of cookies, URL rewriting, etc., stateless nature of HTTP protocol to some extent can be resolved. So, therefore, the first task in pre-processing is filtering the entries for embedded requests. By embedded request we mean the HTML file to which you place the request, along with the HTML file many embedded resources like images, audio, video, etc., also get downloaded. So, removing those embedded requests is the first task. You keep only the HTML pages. Again, there is a problem. There are certain HTML pages which are like frames. Within one HTML page, another HTML page will be embedded. So, that again creates little problem, and if you have the knowledge of domain knowledge of your site, you can even straighten this up. Second is removing the robot entries. You have to have appropriate algorithms for removing these not human like trials, and analyzing the user agent field. You can identify these robots, the algorithms do exist for this, and you remove. If a site wish to control the robot activities, they publish a text called robot.txt, and the requests which come from robots like your spiders, crawlers, etc., they will be going through these entries, going through this robot.txt, and if it is a well behaved crawler, it will learn the instructions and work accordingly. Again, if you maintain a table of true web pages in your site, then keeping those aside, remaining things you can simply delete to get a pre-processed access log. In fact, these filtering activities consume 80% of the effort in log analysis. Now, this is the part of data preparation, and about these steps we learnt earlier, we just discussed. Let us see each of these each of these step a little bit more elaborate way. So, you have get the raw usage data, you clean the data, you have to identify the session to and get the usage statistics, identify the page views, then you complete the path. By path completion we mean you complete the whole, that we are going to discuss little later, because it will be difficult for me to explain it right now. And input to this is your site structure and content. Then finally you make something called a session file. From a session you identify various names for the sessions which are meant for specific purposes. Some people come for product search, some people came to know about your company, details of your company. So, various types of sessions can be identified to make something called a episode file. Okay. Now, data cleaning in the pre-processing is about removing irrelevant references and fields in the server log, removing reference due to spider navigation, remove erroneous references and missing references due to caching. Because if you try to sessionize, it is which is about finding a sequence of pages, related pages, you may find out some of the things are missing. So, you may try to reconstruct the sequence. Then it is about data, next thing is about data integration, which is about getting the data synchronized from multiple server logs and integrate the semantic level details by which gives more meaning to the data that you collected. Then integrate demographic and registration data if available for customer behavior modeling. Then next processing task is about user identification, which I told you is not possible unless otherwise user specifically logs into the site. Then next is sessionization and episode identification, and finally page view identification, where a page view is a set of pages and associated objects that contribute to a single display in the web browser. So, deleting those embedded requests to the embedded resources is a part of this. Then data reduction. Now, here because the data files will be generally very huge, maybe you will be sampling a part of the data, you may be trying to reduce some of the page views and so on, and some of the because after all you are using certain heuristics to do all this. So, sometimes you may encounter with some sequence of page views which probably are not very related. So, you may have to drop them using your domain knowledge. So, most important thing here is to sessionize, bringing all the, because HTTP is a stateless protocol, bringing all the HTTP requests together coming from one user makes a session. Now, why this identifying these sessions are important? Because quality of the pattern discovered depends on the quality of the data on which the mining is applied. Now, in web usage analysis, these data are sessions or site sessions of the site visitors that which indicates the activities they performed in the site, and we have already discussed how exactly, why exactly it is difficult. Then using these cookies etc., it can be resolved up to some extent, but but these cookies etc. are not foolproof and they are not accepted by every site. It is under the control of the user. If the user wants, user will disable the cookies. So, therefore, there are many heuristics are used for sessionize. For user identification, again many methods are used. Use of IP addresses plus the agent is the referrer agent, the browser from which the request has come, that browser agent, that pair may be unique for each user, it is always available. So, there is therefore no additional technology is required, and what is the disadvantage? It may not guarantee to be unique. Then unique in the sense, next time when the same request come from the user through that proxy, a different IP will be combined with the specific browser type. So, but it is one of the options. Then embedded session ID. Now, use of dynamically generated pages are generated pages to associate an ID with for every hyperlink. So, by this embedded session ID we mean this ID will be embedded along with the page request that you send, and next time when the second request come from the user, this is again embedded and comes back. Okay. So, now they are independent of IP, of course, because they are going whatever server they are going from that, whatever client they are going from that client they are coming back. However, they cannot capture revisits within a specific client browser instance. If the client accesses the same website from another browser instance, they are not going to work. Then registration, it is quite straightforward. The user is asked to register, but most of the time, if just to browse a web page, if you are asked to register, will you be registering? No, you won't. So, in fact, it is again dependent on the user. If the user wants, user can make the registration and can get tracked, but otherwise it is not possible. Then cookies, it is also cannot be guaranteed because the user can stop using cookies, but if the user uses, this is one of the best way to not only to track the client within a session, but in multiple sessions when the repeat visit happen, then also the user is tracked. Next is software agents. These software agents can be loaded into the browser and send back the usage data. The example of these software agents are some browser plugins. So, here we show one example of a browser plugin in terms of where some JavaScript from the, what is JavaScript? JavaScript we have already discussed while talking about the dynamic web page generation. JavaScripts are the specially designed functions written in a scripting language called JavaScript, and they are part of your HTML file and gives dynamic client side dynamic effects. So, some JavaScript files provided by about Google Analytics we are going to talk after some time, and they can be embedded within the web pages and they collect and send back the usage data. Then this sessionization heuristics can be broadly classified into time oriented heuristics, which count upon the time when the last page was sent, and as you know there is a rule, industry rule called 30-second rule. So, it says that if the first request comes now, then as after 30 seconds, if the request within the 30 seconds the next request does not come, then probably it is the end of a session, but it may not be so. So, anyway it depends on the, but this is not a golden rule or anything. In this time, this 30 seconds can be adjusted, but looking at this time field, see what are we talking about? We are talking about how to clean and pre-process the access log, and from the structure of the access log we know that it contains a field which gives the date and time. So, looking at this field, the requests which are close enough in time can be put together. This is one time oriented heuristic. Then second group of heuristics for sessionization are navigation oriented heuristics. They just look at how the web pages are actually connected, so that if somebody is browsing, let us say page A, and there is a link to another page B within that, then if there are two nearby requests in the access log to page A and B, then probably they have from the same user. That is how they are put together. In fact, both these time oriented heuristics and navigation oriented heuristics are combined many times to generate the sessions. Path completion. Path completion, see we are trying to sessionize. By sessionize we mean collecting. Why are we doing all this? We are doing all this because we will be cleaning the access log, and that access log after cleaning will be using to understand user behavior, users navigation behavior, users activities, user search behavior within the website. That is our intention. So, for this purpose we have understood the structure of access log and what problems can be encountered while using it, and we are talking about how to clean the access log. In the cleaning process, one of the activities is to identify the sessions. If we group all the user activities together, then only we will be able to give some generic ideas about their behavior, right? Otherwise, it is not possible. So, therefore, next task after sessionization is path completion. It refers to the problem of inferring the missing user references due to caching, and then following again certain heuristics to combine them to create a complete path of activities. Now, effective path completion requires extensive knowledge of link structure within the site. Referrer information in the server log can also be used to disambiguate the inferred path. Then in case the site contains frames are basically embedding HTML pages within another HTML pages, path completion even becomes difficult, because always the entries in the access log will come in the name of the parent frame. Now, in order to for this path completion, how the web pages are semantically connected through the meaning of through the what do you call the content of the web page. If we can associate the pages with respect to that, then even sessionization and path completion becomes and develop heuristics based on that, even sessionization and path completion becomes possible, at least can be done in a better manner. So, here the basic idea is to associate each request page with one or more domain concept to better understand the process of navigation or web usage. For example, you can see three consecutive 3 requests which you identify as a session, and you say that first the person searched the items through category, then he searched all the items through category and title, and finally he has chosen the items looking at the individual items. So, such kind of activities about the user can be traced back by if you use semantics. Now, for this associating this semantic or the meaning, you need to connect the topics from the URLs that is in your website. So, each request can be connected to one concept or more than one concept. Now, this concept, this is some fundamental idea about the basics of semantic session modeling, which is a part of pre-processing task only, in which using the semantic using the knowledge of the semantic, more better sessions can be formed, better path completion algorithms can be designed, and so on. So, these concepts can concern the content, specific content or service. These concepts can be part of a bigger ontology. Ontology is basically a concept hierarchy, how the concepts are linked with each other, and then a session can be viewed as a set or a sequence or a tree or a graph of request of possible n requests, which ultimately leads to one concept. So, using all this, you try to identify the sessions, but after you identify the sessions etc., and filter all the erroneous entries, erroneous undesirable entries from the website, finally you bring the data into a flat file form. In this flat file form, it can be now stored into a database. For example, here there is one example from some source which shows the fields like IP address, user ID, request time, request method, request resource, protocol, status code, bytes, referrer, user agent, session ID, which you created following all these one creates following all these heuristics that we just now discussed. Then object ID, the one item that is get downloaded. Now, the resulting format, if the sessions cannot be resolved, if the session is the instance, then the features you have to now identify what kind of session it is, because you are going to identify the episodes, right. So, what kind of session it is? In fact, we are coming back to the same example again. If one group of users are there who search by category, then search category plus title, then search by items, they are, let us say, have a specific feature of browsing, but there will be another category who probably may be your old user, who will be directly looking at individual products, because they are already acquainted with how you have organized this your menu and all. So, if you this is for instance I am telling, if you can actually distinguish these two groups, maybe two different behaviors you can observe for the repeat visitors and for new visitors. So, with this we end this particular lecture, and from next lecture again we will continue with this topic. Thank you very much.